Let's jump into the news because we have actually a little bit to get into in today's episode. And of course, it kind of spoils a little bit of our silly season predictions to an extent in terms of the charters that were kind of distributed with this piece of news. As we all knew, Kaulig Racing was going to be joining the NASCAR Cup Series in 2022. It was just a matter of would it be chartered? Would it not be chartered? Where would they get this charter from? And we finally have confirmation on that news today before we recorded today's episode, as they have purchased two charters from Spire Motorsports, leaving them with only one, that being Spire for Corey LaJoie's entry in 2022. Most likely that he re-ups with the team there and stays in the 7 car. But now Kaulig has two charters now, and they're going one car full-time in 2022 with Justin Haley. So Kyle gets 1 for 1 on the silly season side of things with his predictions. I am off to a 0 for 1 start as per usual. So it's not been great out of the gate, but we still have lots of time to get to with silly season. And they're also going to be doing a part-time car with AJ Allmendinger, which will not be chartered. So that makes a lot of sense in terms of Kaulig's kind of aspirations for the Cup Series. They basically have become a little bit of the new Spire in a sense. That was kind of the vibe that we're kind of getting here. Justin Haley drove for Spire for many races in a kind of a part-time schedule with the team to get some Cup Series experience. Now Kaulig is bringing him back for the Cup Series side of things and putting him in there full-time. And AJ Allmendinger will continue his full-time Xfinity Series schedule in 2022. So lots of news there on Kaulig Racing's front. And what do you make of the news here, Kyle? Spire going down to only one charter car next season, and then Kaulig adding a second one that could potentially be on the move elsewhere for another team to get.
Yeah, so just to begin, it's been confirmed that Kaulig will be using both charters. And so the first charter is going to be the normal 16. It's going to be used by Justin Haley full-time. The second charter will be split between AJ Allmendinger and somebody else. So it's going to be
really
similar to what like Spire has done with like the 77, where it's been a rotation of drivers. It could be AJ and one other person. It could be multiple other drivers. So that's kind of where things are at right now going into next season. So Haley will be playoff eligible. That second car won't be, but will still be eligible for owner points and everything like that. So a bit of a unique situation. It's not too often we see a competitive car, which we expect Kaulig to be from what we've seen so far this season from them on both the super speedways and the road courses. We expect them to be at least somewhat competitive. And so it's not too often we see one of those cars have a rotation of drivers. So that should be something interesting to watch next year. But I'll begin on the Kaulig side, makes a ton of sense. We already knew that they were going up to the Cup Series. Justin Haley's been a driver that they've been developing alongside for now 3 years, I believe it is, since he came up from GMS in the Truck Series. He's been continuously progressing each year, and I think it makes a ton of sense. He's been getting Cup Series experience this year, running at the back of the pack with Spire in that 77 for basically every race weekend that he can. And I think that he's a great driver for Kaulig to bring to the Cup Series, have run full time, and be that kind of guy that they can, again, in the Cup Series now, grow alongside. I think he's a really solid prospect. He has sponsorship as well, which is a big aspect here. So it's a move that makes a lot of sense for both sides. On the Spire side of things, basically, you knew that LaJoie in the 7 was kind of like their main focus, and they had kind of other charters from just kind of circumstance that they were able to acquire them, less so of them wanting to actually use them. They've kind of run the last couple of years doing so. But with a partner like Kaulig that they've worked closely with, of course, with Justin Haley and all those kind of different ties, makes a lot of sense for them to sell to that team, still have those ties between the two. I am surprised that it was both that they sold. I figured that they would sell one, maybe keep two, maybe use both, maybe loan the other, something along those lines. I am a little bit surprised that they sold both. But for Spire, makes a lot of sense. They can now solely focus on that number 7. LaJoie is already under a multi-year contract, so they don't need to worry about that. Solid driver for them, who's really helped that team kind of take that slight step up to be competitive with kind of that second front row car this year. Once next gen comes in, that's when their plan really starts to come to fruition for Spire. And for Kaulig, Haley makes a lot of sense. AJ Allmendinger as well. I didn't think that he would go full-time Cup racing, so it makes sense to keep him Xfinity full-time and then have him basically do the races that he wants to in the Cup Series. Who he's partnered with, I think, is a more interesting question for that car. They talked about Kaz Grala in the press conference, how they want to keep him in the fold, and it's mainly sponsorship stuff. that they're working with to see where he kind of ends up with the team. So interested to see what happens with the rest of that second Kaulig ride, but overall, it makes a lot of sense for both parties involved.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell Haley's kind of been the relationship guy to bridge that with Kaulig for a while here, and that relationship continues on in 2022. So I'm just happy that Kaulig is, showing that they're very interested in the Cup Series. They're willing to put the effort in. Spire did say last season, yeah, we're fully invested in the sport, and I think they have done that with the 7 car. But to take this kind of step back is a little bit interesting. I wasn't expecting them to sell both, just right out sell instead of just maybe keeping one for a lease, loan one to a team for a year, hopefully something else comes up, but that was not the case this time around. And apologies for getting the information wrong. I have had a busy morning, and I have not quite had the time to really look into it. But
a bit murky as well. It kind of came out in pieces over the entire press conference as well, so it's all good.
No worries. So yeah, a very congratulations though to Justin Haley for securing a Cup Series ride. Well deserved. Has done very well in the Xfinity Series. Made the championship 4 last season, of course, for Kaulig. So the signs are there that he could be ready for a Cup Series ride, and to be that kind of flagship guy, a guy that they're going to build the team around, is very, very cool to see for Justin Haley. And Matt Kaulig and everybody from Chris Rice at that team have done a fantastic job in their steps, in their strides of slowly moving up the Xfinity Series pack to where they are a legit championship threat this season with AJ Allmendinger, Justin Haley, and even Jeb Burton, if you want to consider those two in there as well. They've got a lot of right things going on, and I'm really happy that AJ Allmendinger is really deciding what his future should look like in motorsports. He's deciding, probably the pressure in the Cup Series is a little bit too much for him. He has invested some money, it seems, in the team as well. So he's with that Matt Kaulig kind of stable over there for the long haul, it seems. And that's great to see that he's really found a fit in a home that he feels comfortable with. And he's just willing to do the Xfinity Series stuff. And it's great to see that we're going to have a competitive guy down there again next season in 2022. So lots of exciting things in store for Kaulig Racing in 2022 and for the remainder of 2021 as they go for a championship bid in the Xfinity Series. So do you have anything else you want to add on the story here, Kyle?
I think the last little bit is kind of the fallout from the Spire side of things. And that's what it means for now Trackhouse, because of course Spire has 3 charters this season. They're selling 2 of them and they're keeping one themselves, which means that there's no Spire charter to loan to Trackhouse now. And it seems like Justin Marks was kind of caught off guard, at least a little bit, based off of what he tweeted earlier today, kind of saying like he found out about this deal the same time everybody else did when it was announced today. So interested to see what happens now for Trackhouse. We heard last week that they were looking to actually expand. I don't know if the charter situation now impacts that, if they're still going full steam ahead and looking to that second car, regardless as to whether they have 2 charters, 1 charter, no charters. So I think that's something to watch here as well. Spire selling 2 is one that I don't think we were expecting, but there's still a handful of charters that could potentially be sold. Rickware Racing has 4 charters. They could potentially look to sell 1 or 2 of those. One of those could actually be rescinded by NASCAR by finishing for the 3rd season in a row in the bottom 3. That Pettyware number 51 is currently 3rd last in the Cup Series in odor points. If they rescind that, there's a bunch of stuff that could go around. They could also just sell it outright there. There's the JTG rumors. Of course, they only have 1 charter right now, but they could look to sell. So there are still some other charters to go around for the 2311s, Trackhouse, anybody else that could be looking to acquire one. But I think now that the Kaulig domino has fallen, I think now we can start to see where some of the other pieces start to fall in terms of new seats that come around, whether teams decide to expand, stay as, buy a charter, loan charters, a bunch of other stuff can now go into kind of place now that kind of the main one of Kaulig, who we knew were going to be the most aggressive to kind of get things in place for next year, those plans have now been settled.
This charter stuff is so stressful, man. It's so hard to keep track of sometimes. Like, I just wish it was just a straight 43 car field and we didn't have to worry about this stupid stuff anymore. But we're in a world where this is where money talks, and charters are very valuable to these teams. So I can't really go against the kind of methodology that they've kind of gone down here. But at the same time, it is very confusing if you're just trying to get into the sport for an average fan to really understand the depths and why this team cannot expand and why this team can expand and yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the day, Kaulig Racing got through all of this mayhem with the charter system, and they have established themselves and have got their 2022 plans done nice and early so they can really start to focus on that next season with the next gen car. So looking forward to seeing how they do and how the rest of these charters are going to be distributed, because we know there's teams that are looking to expand, and some of them that may be looking to kind of fold to an extent as well. So lots of different storylines here. So we'll keep you covered on that front with the charters and who's moving, who's not, and everything like that. But exciting stuff for Kaulig Racing and for Spire Motorsports. We'll see what they do with their future plans beyond 2022, if they decide to go back to a 2-car stable with a charter, or if they decide to kind of stick with one with Corey LaJoie or somebody else long term.